What's up, everyone? I've been thinking a lot, and I actually listened to a podcast this morning about the Devouring Mother archetype, and it was from the Academy of Ideas. And I've also heard this archetype from Jordan Peterson a few times. I've seen this archetype playing out in my own life a few times. And what I have realized about this archetype is when this archetype emerges, I think people really have to go deep into their shadow. As NT, whether it's ENTJ or INTP, however people want to classify it. The fact is, for my shadow, at the deepest part of my shadow, is extroverted sensing and introverted feeling. If I'm an INTP, then it's introverted sensing and extroverted feeling. But either way, in general, feelings have always been a hard part of reality to get into for myself, probably also because I'm a male. And I think a lot of men have that problem. And I started to think, why do we have that problem? It's kind of because it hasn't been looked at as a problem forever. But I think society right now, with this devouring mother archetype, is demanding that people dig deep into their shadow. If they're feelers, they get deep into thinking. And if they're thinkers, they begin to decide how they feel about things. What I've realized being in college is that everything is socially constructed. It was a really interesting term. They say that basically because things are socially constructed, we can group people into certain categories, and basically that's what type is, but there's other ways of doing that. We can do it by race, gender, sex. And what I'm seeing right now is there's a battle between introverted feeling, extroverted feeling, masculinity and femininity, all around the world, and everybody is very one-sided on this. And I think more people kind of need to get deep into their shadow, and we don't exactly know how to. For a long time, I was just saying, you need to learn to do the things that other types do. Maybe it was confidence in things, but what I've realized as a student now is that to really get into your shadow kind of means to interact with the zeitgeist. And what I think a lot of people do is when they get into their late teens, early 20s, a lot of people just decide to stop interacting with the zeitgeist, stop developing in a way. For myself, I dropped out of school. I didn't think I needed it, and I probably missed out on learning a lot about how the world is constructed because of that. I just used my own intuition for that. But now that I'm back in school, I am seeing how the world is constructed, and I am realizing that a lot of what's going on in school is like extroverted feeling more so than introverted thinking or extroverted thinking like I had previously assumed. And I think what you're seeing is that extroverted feeling is kind of trying to set the tone of like the moral standards in a way. And men, rather than deciding to engage with it because they would have to do it on an emotional realm, are disengaging, so it's just taking over dominantly. And then I do think that just societally, that we see the same thing between introverted feeling and extroverted feeling. Something else I've noticed is that probably extroverted sensing in its rawest form is dead. It's contained to organized sports, or it's contained to war. So basically you have very few options to get into extroverted sensing as a man. And then when you do, it's really contained within extroverted thinking. So you're going after something that might not matter to you. So there's my real thing here is that there's a lot of divide in the world, and everybody's being one-sided. And what we really need is for people to look into their shadow, to find ways to interact with it, stop opting out of interacting with it. It's the biggest thing we need to do. Wherever we are, wherever our ego is, if we just keep ourselves there, we're kind of letting the world work outside of us when um, throughout history we've seen that's not a good thing. The fact is, right now we're at like the end of a system. Um, just looking at it from my location in the United States, if I look back from when there was raw material in the United States, it was a very extroverted sensing thing. Then we went into the extroverted thinking stage where all that raw material was systemized. So there became lumber yards and things like that. Um, we went into some extroverted feeling, introverted sensing, and these are all the zeitgeists that we went through as a society. And every culture, every society has similar movements. And actually, because we're so connected globally, we all kind of share a very similar path, though sometimes it may be opposite if certain countries are the shadow of another country. Um, but I think rather than, I mean, I think it's inevitable we need to go one sided, but I think that before it's too late, people should try to merge by themselves, by every individual who can themselves going into their shadow. Um, if you look at things from an emotional standpoint, you really need to look into how logic works. If you are very logical, you should probably try to find ways to get into your emotions, not or at least understand how you really feel about things. Because when I say the world socially constructed, I'm not joking, and it's being. I've heard the word reconstructed, but there's revisionism. Um, and if we opt out of society, then we can't prevent that. And I don't know that that's a good thing, especially if you are rewriting history. If you aren't accepting that history was the beginning or the early stages of our system, and now we're coming to a almost transitional stage of that system. I've always talked about transitions within us as individuals, and how they're important to embrace and work through, figure out how you move through transitions. But now, as a society, I think a lot of people should start looking at how we've moved through these transitions previously. Um, what I'm doing right now is I'm going to put together a series on um, the different archetypes that have overshadowed as the zeitgeist within society. I've also kind of made some similar timelines towards the future of like how we can go, how I see that we may be transitioning through different stages. One thing I will say is at this point in society, um, the transitions are faster. Like where they used to be 100-year transitions, now it's like maybe like 6 to 10 year transitions, which is insane. And just for like a sneak peek, maybe at the end, I think there's a few different ways that you're going to see things. Um, like maybe we go back into a new raw extroverted sensing zeitgeist if enough things are created, um, and there's like enough exploration, or maybe you go into a more like NIFI TE type of society, um, because of obviously AI and algorithms and mass data collection and um, being able to synthesize information so much and make simulations. We may have like everything be governed in a very strict way, or it may be that we create something where there's a lot of new environments, but that's like at the end of the system when we move through the current transition. In the current transition, we need to kind of, as a society, like as a unfortunately global society. The reason I say unfortunately is because I think when we become global, with that revisionism, you're going to see a lot of history get erased. But because we are a global society, um, and because we're so interconnected, I think people need to right now the the force in society that needs alignment is extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. Either one is going to destroy the other, or one is going to consume the other. And following that, I think we will probably um, get more into an introverted thinking state, maybe. It's possible. That's what I'm kind of, it's a system. So I guess it really depends. If I think if FE consumes FI, um, then we would go into an introverted thinking state to um, kind of organize what's now going to be accepted. Because that's the thing is FE is about emotional alignment, but it is very tribal, where FI is emotional alignment, but it's individualistic. So we would have to have the tribe take on the individual, which was really, I think, one of Carl Jung's biggest points. He saw this coming with the diversity that we see in my country, the United States, and probably as I've read, there's diversity all over. I don't know exactly how much, but when diversity happens, you get a lot of different beliefs and values, and I think that when we can get into our feelings and agree what is right and wrong, then we can begin to make society better in a much more whole way. And that's pretty much what I wanted to go over today. I want to start talking more about Carl Jung's ideas from a broader social stance and then move back into a psychological stance. Psychology is still my number one favorite subject, but I don't think you can do it without recognizing that we live within a contained system. And I just want to bring these ideas up. And if you have any ideas, or you were impacted by anything I said, or you disagree or even agree, let me know in the comments. I really want to get back into engaging with everybody who follows me. That way we can start all getting to be our best selves, become whole, and hopefully the world can become whole when more people start doing that. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Cognition Ignition. Thanks.